I've played Pokemon for over a decade now, and I like to say I'm pretty above average at it. However, I've noticed two problems when it comes to the mainline games. One, the games are way too easy, and two, I've used about the same 10 Pokemon in every single run of the game. So I found a solution to both of these issues. I present to you the Pokemon Omega Ruby Hardcore Midlocke. You might be asking yourself, what is a hardcore midlock? And it's pretty simple. It's the normal hardcore Nuzlocke rules with the additional rule of banning all Pokemon over 500 base stat total. Plus a few others, as well as banning Megas in order to force myself to use Pokemon that I and most others would otherwise ignore. One other thing. To make sure I get the worst encounters I can possibly get, I have my friend Jack, who you might know from my Mario Kart 8 videos, pick every single one of my encounters. With all that out of the way, let's begin the journey. By having the limitation of no Pokemon over 500 base stat, the usual suspects of the Hoenn starters are missing. So Jack chose a brand new selection of starters including a fire, water, and grass type. And my options are Snover, with one of the worst type combos in the game as being an ice and grass type, as well as having Snow Warning, which is more of a hindrance than anything as I can't get another ice type until Moss Deep City, so this is automatically eliminated. Second is Litwick, with an amazing typing of Fire Ghost, which is not only two of the most uncommon types, but they also wall most of the early game. But with the downside of not having any use against Roxanne, the Rock-type gym leader. And finally, Duckling, the water flying type that is the definition of a mid-Pokemon. With a quad weakness to Watson's electric types, this could prove to be unreliable later in the game. If you noticed, all of my starter choices are weak to the first gym's rock Pokemon. However, despite all of this, I decide on Ducklet over Litwick in order to have at least something that's super effective against Roxanne. With my Sauna in hand, we win our first battle against May and gain access to Pokeballs, marking the official start of this challenge. Our first destination is Route 101, where we catch our first party member, Zigzagoon, who we name Cordy, who will play a key role in the first half of this run due to Linoon's amazing coverage and early evolution. For our next encounters though, I need to bring up another feature that I'm using for this run. Nat Dex encounters. In these games, once you beat Kyogre and Groudon, Pokemon that are not native to the Hoenn region start appearing as Dex Nav encounters. In this run, Jack and I agreed to use these Pokemon because damn, these games do not give you a lot of encounter variety, and especially in the late game. But due to not being able to access these Pokemon this early in the game, I do have to gen in these encounters. The first of these encounters is Mic Drop, the Chatot on Route 103. And to be honest, I don't know why Jack gave me a base 92 special attack and 91 speed this early in the game. But I mean, hey, we take those, right? The second Nat Dex encounter is Citadel the Gothita, who sadly won't evolve into a Gothorita until after Norman at 32, and finally become useful as a Gothitelle at level 41. So once we get a team set up, she will definitely make a nice home in the box. Making our way to Petalburg to meet our dad on Take Your Child to Work Day, only for him to force me to play with the weird kid who catches a soon-to-be body pillow Ralts. Leaving and forgetting that ever happened, we catch our next team member in a loot box the Wormhole, who I desperately hope to become a Dustox, just so I don't have another electric weakness on my team, as well as Beautyfly being quad weak to rock, and we don't need another rock type weakness. But unfortunately for me, Wormpole decides to evolve into a Silcoon, and its fate is sealed. Feeling my impending doom approaching, I pick up Francis, the Paris, as my Petalburg Nat Dex encounter. And if you thought Snover had a bad typing, let me introduce you to the Bug and Grass typing. After taking out Team Magma Grunt number 1 and getting the EXP share, which I promptly turn off because I am candy pilled. We make it to Rustboro City, home of my sleep paralysis demon Roxanne. But before we can do any of that, we still got 2 more encounters. And the first one is on Route 116 where I get a Skitty. And I really hope this thing does not have it's got normalized. Which means this thing is infinitely less viable, especially considering we only get easy access to 1 Moonstone in the entire game. And I need to save that for a much more viable Pokemon. And our final encounter, before the first gym, is a guaranteed Whismur, who is another late Evo. But if it can survive until then, it will become a monster of an Exploud with amazing coverage. So we name him Propaganda and move on to the dreadful battle with Gym Leader Roxanne. Despite the odds looking like they're stacked against us, with most of our team not even being able to deal neutral damage to Roxanne's Rock-type Pokemon, we do have a saving grace in the fact that both our Geodude and Nosepass have virtually the exact same moveset, with a normal type and Rock-type damaging move, and then like a defense buffing move. So we lead the battle with Citadel, and she sends out her Geodude. We get off a Confusion, which knocks that floating Rockman below half health before she retaliates with a Rock Tomb, which we eat up. Even with the speed loss, we still outspeed and the Geodude goes down. We are halfway done with this battle, but it is not over yet because Igor's favorite Pokemon, Nosepass, comes out, and now it's time for my plan to go into motion. The idea of leading with Gothita is that we can use Tickle, which is a move that lowers both attack and defense in order to utterly neuter this Walmart brand Onix. After getting off 2 Tickles and a couple of Confusions, we switch out to Skitty in order to put the Nosepass to sleep. The reason for this is that I want to get a clean switch into Sauna and take out the Nosepass before it even gets a chance to attack me. The problem here is that Sing is only a 55% accurate move, so there is definitely a lot of timelines where this plan falls apart. In a stroke of luck that was granted from the heavens above, Skitty landed Sing turn 1, and I take back everything negative I've ever said about this Skitty. Now we are able to get a clean switch into Sauna and Water Pulse this Nosepass to death and get out of this battle deathless. That was not a clean switch in. Ooh. Hit. Oh, that was so unlucky. Not only did this decapitated Stonehenge wake up turn 2, which I didn't even think was possible, but then lives a Water Pulse in the red, breaks through Confusion, and if that wasn't bad enough, crits my Sauna and kills it! After Roxanne potions up, Cordy was able to take out this PS2 model and wins us the fight. After that fight, I need a breather, so we decide to set sail to Dewford. But before that, we need to help out Joe Biden recover his Wingull from terrorists before he takes me on Air Force One to the island. Here, we gain access to the Old Rod, which allows us to catch not 1, but 2 more water types in Tentacool and Goldeen. But let's be real, none of them are going to replace what we just lost. Before going to an actual gym, we catch an Onix, who, again, let's be honest, won't ever leave the confines of the PC in this run. Now, when I say we obliterate this gym, I mean it. Chatot is able to take out all of the grief placed upon her by sweeping John Cena so hard she is now labeled a terrorist and no longer allowed on Dewford Island. After getting bailouts from the local stone and nepotism enthusiast Stephen Stone, Joe Biden once again gives us the lift on Air Force One to Slateport City in order to help build the Titanic 2. But Team Magma is racist against water and tries to stop the deal from going through. But luckily, Maxie doesn't do a thing, unless his grunts do all the work. So of course we're able to win easily. After bringing a poison jellyfish to a beauty pageant and promptly losing, we get a participation trophy in the form of a Pikachu before leaving to Route 110, where Jack gives me a gift in the form of one of my favorite Pokemon, Trubbish. However, unfortunately for me, poison types are not that useful in Hoenn, so we won't be getting too much use out of it for the major battles in this run. Before we're able to make it to Mauville City and meet our doom, we have to battle May once more. But this time, her team is composed of a fire, water, and grass type, making a sweep near impossible. Fortunately for us, we were able to counter each of our Pokemon, starting with a lava slug with our pus-filled jellyfish. Then, her Grovyle falls victim to loot boxes, and finally, the whale that skipped gym class one too many times gets shocked by a chem major. With nothing left in our way, we make it to Mauville, catch Ikea, the forgettable Illumise, crush the dreams of the snot-nosed Wally, and brace ourselves for Watson. Now, I am gonna be 100% real with you guys. I am not expecting to win this fight against Watson, but there are a few ways that I can make this at least possible. I start by getting the HM for Rock Smash that can be used to counter 2 of Watson's steel types and promptly teach it to as many party members as I can, not knowing that you can't forget HMs until after Gym 6 in Lily Cove. So now I'm stuck with essentially 3 moves on some of my most useful members of my team. So after about solid 10 minutes of staring into my box of Pokemon, I realized something. I have a ground type, Onix, and it completely walls both Magnemite and Voltorb. However, Watson's illegal, mind you, Magneton, can still hit us with a super effective Magnet Bomb. But upon leveling Onix up, I run into another problem. Onix doesn't learn a ground type move, and to be honest, I got nothing for this fight now. But that's when a light bulb goes off in my head. Mauville City is one of the few locations where you can buy TMs. So, I go and take a gander and look at the TMs I can get. And wouldn't you know, one of the TMs that they're selling is a Bulldoze, which turns this gym from possibly one of the hardest gyms in the game, hardest battles in the game, to honestly just as sweepable as Brawly. So with that, we challenge the electrician who let a little too loose on his vacation, and I lead with Onix, and he promptly leads with Magnemite, who cannot hurt us due to it only having electric moves and a resisted tackle. So I take this time to set up using Curse, which, lowers my speed, but in turn, raises both my attack and defense, which I'm able to mitigate Onix's criminally low attack and heighten its criminally high defense. And in just a few turns, Onix sweeps Watson in one of the most anticlimactic fights in Nuzlocke history. So this next part of the game is really long and there's not many interesting battles that take place. So I'm just gonna talk through all the encounters and then we'll move on to the next important battle. First up, on Route 112, we catch Crate the Numel, and then we catch a second fire type on Fiery Path, and our Slugma who we name Nuts. Then we take a short break and meet with Steve Irwin, who tells you to subscribe, which you should definitely do. On Route 113, we get Wazap the Spinda, and then we also get the TM for Dig and Fall Over Town, which, we'll be using later. Then we catch a very nice Zangoose we named Garfield on Route 114, and then finally pick up another Nat Dex encounter in Dino on Meteor Falls. Now, you might be thinking, getting a pseudo legendary in this game defeats the whole purpose of this being a midlock, but Hydreigon is a special case because it only evolves at level 64, which is well above our level cap for the entire run, so we won't have to run into this problem. Despite this though, we still have Dragon Rage, which at this point in the game is still somewhat viable. Then we rescue the professor from Team Magma with the help of May, pick up a Moonstone, and make our way to the appropriately named Mount Chimney in order to challenge Maxie himself after beating a low leak run and forgettable admin Tabitha. After getting all of that out of the way, it is finally time for us to fight Maxie, He leads with a Mightyena, so we promptly counter this with a Loot Box, who we bring up to the level cap as we're not going to be able to use her for the next gym as it's a fire type. Mightyena uses Swagger to confuse, but luckily we were able to easily break through and one-shot the doggo with a Silver Wind. Second up is surprisingly the illegal level 27 Camerupt. And I predict it will use a fire type move, so I can switch into Nemo the Goldeen here. However, to my surprise, Maxi goes for Amnesia, instead boosting his special defense by 2 stages, making my life a whole lot harder. Even with a 4-time super effective stab water pulse, we are still only able to do no more than a quarter of its health. I'm forced to switch out and decide to go for Loot Box as I try to predict another Earth Power. Fortunately, this works out, and we're able to pivot into Little Man the Dino, and Maxi goes for another Amnesia. This does not matter though, because we just go for a Dragon Rage, which knocks down Camerupt to the red, who thankfully does not get a critical hit on us, as we go for one last Dragon Rage and take down Maxi's ace. Last up is Golbat, and this is pretty simple as we switch out to Wizap, put the largemouth bat to sleep before Psybeaming it to death, but not before getting a bit of a scare as we could have lost Spinda to a crit wing attack, as Golbat woke up in another 1-turn sleep. But either way, we defeated Maxi and even got away deathless. I continue my journey down the mountain through Jagged Pass, where I am able to pick up a lunch to Machop, who just so happens to have guts. Eventually, we make it to Lava Ridge Town, where we would normally get an egg that becomes a Wynaut. But instead, we're getting a Togepi because it can only become a Togetic in this run with the limitation. We have nothing left to do in this town, so we go ahead and challenge Miss Anger Issues herself. I'm fully expecting all of her Pokemon to set up the sun, which would absolutely cripple my Tentacool, so I prepare by bringing both Numel and Onix as backup. Little did I know, Ward would one-shot her first 2 Pokemon with Bubble Beam. Now, when I look at the guide and I see that she has a Torkoal on her team, I'm fully expecting it to have Drought, and to my surprise, Torkoal doesn't have Drought in this game. No Sun gets set up, and we're able to kill it, and this becomes the 3rd gym in a row that I've just been able to sweep. Oddly, in this game, the moment you beat Flannery, you have immediate access to the next gym, which is Norman in Petalburg, and this is one of the most cheesable gyms in the game, so I am feeling so confident right now with the rest of this run. But before returning to Petalburg, I decide to pick up the root fossil in the desert located on Route 111 and restore Lily in Rustboro. Then, we make our way to the normal gym, which has one of the hardest gyms, only for the fact that we have to fight 3 trainers and there's no way around it. For the majority of this run, I've done my best to avoid all trainer battles to prevent deaths of Pokemon that could help me against the game's bosses. However, in this gym, that is not an option, and on top of that, each trainer uses an X item, boosting one of their stats. For the most part, this is inconsequential until I reach the final ace trainer before Norman. Her X item is Attack, and with her very own Zangoose, with a base attack stat of 115, that becomes very dangerous if I cannot knock it out fast. Unfortunately, a Silver Wind from Loot Box can't even do half, and I don't even get a stat boost, which leads to a Crush Claw one-shotting Loot Box and our second death. On the bright side, Beautifly is getting outshined by my other Pokemon at this point in the game, so it isn't a soul-crushing loss, but sad nonetheless. We send out our Zangoose, who cannot get the kill with Slash and dies to a boosted Revenge. 2 Pokemon down to a regular trainer. Fortunately, Revenge is negative priority move, meaning that baiting it in with a Loudred means that we're able to put this Edgelord down and lay to rest Loot Box and Garfield. I can't grieve for too long as I have a date with my dad and his big hairy men. The plan for Norman is simple. Since its first 2 Slacking have Truant and can attack every other turn, we can exploit this by putting Dig on QWERTY, who can outspeed both Slackings in order to just not take any damage. However, after about 6 digs in, I realized that Dig only has 10 PP, meaning that I don't have enough to take down the other Slacking. On top of that, Norman uses a Hyper Potion, fully healing, and I forget that using an item does not count towards Truant, messing up my entire sequence of using Dig. Now, in hindsight, I could have put a Level Berry on QWERTY, and to be honest, I don't know why I didn't. That would have saved me so much trouble during this fight, but we need to switch out now, and so I decided to switch out into Onix, as QWERTY got yawned by Slacking. However, Onix is slower and gets hit by another yawn. The good news though is that we do go for Rock Smash and get a defense drop and are able to switch back into Cordy on a Truant turn to put momentum back into our favor. After the last of my digs and a headbutt, slacking goes down, but unfortunately, this is only Norman's first Pokemon. Next up, Vigoroth. Arguably the most difficult of Norman's Pokemon, only because that it can attack every turn. But I came prepared for this. Before the battle started, I decided to walk all the way back to Fiery Path in order to intentionally burn Lunch, the Machoke, with a Flame Body Slugma that I encountered in the wild. This took way longer than I thought it did, but it's about to pay off. I get a switch into Lunch, but when I do, Vigoroth goes for a Retaliate, which does double the damage now that I just knocked out one of Norman's Slacking last turn. This does about 2/3 of my health, but I do have an Oran Berry, giving me just enough health to avoid a guaranteed death next turn. After having some debate with myself, I came to the conclusion that no matter what Lunch does, he does not live next turn, due to either a crit or a burn damage at the end of the turn. I have to make this decision to sack off Lunch. If I don't do this, I risk losing another more valuable member of my team. I can't get him a champ in this run, so realistically, this is as far as Lunch is gonna go. So with a heavy heart, I make my decision. Lunch did not die in vain, and will be remembered as a hero for generations to come. We are able to get a clean switch in thanks to the death, and I'm able to send out Onix against the final Slacking. One curse to get a Truant sequence right, then use Dig to victory, marking the second time Onix is coming clutch on a gym fight. After calling Child Protective Services on Norman for the murder of our Lunch, we get Surf as compensation, giving us access to 7 new encounters, and after 2 game crashes, we can finally list them off. And with that another speed run, we go back to Route 111 and get a Surskit as our loot box replacement. On Route 115, we get a planned Elite 4 member in K-Pop the Jigglypuff. Surfing on Route 105 gets us Keen Eye Wingull, which means no Drizzle on Pelipper and useless. On New Mauville, we get Voltorb, and then 3 Nat Dex encounters in Skrelp, Frillish, and Krabby for Route 107, 108, and 109 respectively. With all of that out of the way, we head east and meet up with Steven to beat up Team Magma and get a pointless Pokemon and a pointless bracelet. After that, we get our encounter on Route 118, and oh, wouldn't you know, it's a Horde of Kecleon. Surely nothing bad will happen to one of the most useful members of our team, right? So Kecleon for Tentacruel is not a trade I would call worth it, but it is what it is. We move on, we catch a Tropius on Route 119 before entering the Weather Institute and throttling Team Magma with Frillish, but not before yet another Earth Power scare. Hey, it's Mayfight time! And yet again, we have a counter for every single thing on her team, and we easily win. We arrive in Fortress City and can't enter the gym until we meet up with Steven, who lets us in on some insider trading and makes us fight another Kecleon, who apparently has ancient power. And I don't know what about this silly little lizard screams ancient, but I guess that was a lack of game knowledge coming back to bite me. Anyways, it's time to plan for yet another scary gym leader in Winona, who I have been terrified of since the start of this run. So I'm just going to let the clip play for itself. Yeah, it turns out Altaria is free as long as you have a fairy flying type who cannot be hit by any of its moves, but hey, I'm not complaining. Now comes the long stretch of Team Magma stuff, which is not very eventful, so it's another speedrun time. First off, we catch a Gloom on Route 120, Shuppet on Route 121, Doduo in the Safari Zone, Natdex encounter on Aphinion on Route 122, Duskull on Mount Pyre, deal with Team Magma, go to Slaveport for some reason, go to Lily Cove where we easily beat May for the final time, conquer the Magma hideout, and purposely not get the Master Ball because we don't need to catch a super powerful legendary or anything. We head to Moss Deep where I acquired a Super Rod, allowing for easy capture of a Bartboach and Crawdon on the Scorched Slab and Route 123. Some Natdex encounters in Seal and Delibird for Route 125 and Shoal Cave. And next we go to the Moss Deep Gym, which specialize in rock, psychic types. And oddly, they only have 2, which is even more surprising considering that Winona had 4, but again, I'm not complaining. Both Solrock and Lunatone are both hard countered by the newly caught Wishcash and Crawdon, so as long as we take out Solrock before it can use Solar Beam, we should be fine. And we do just that, and get our 7th gym badge giving us access to dive, and the level cap goes from 45 to 46! We get some dive encounters such as Chinchou and Clampearl, as well as a Love Disc in which we take the opportunity to grind heart scales. We then go to the Seafloor Cavern and catch Crobat the Golbat and take on Maxie once and for all. And just like Tate and Liza, for some reason Maxie has very few Pokemon, only 4 this time, and he's supposed to be the boss. Kinda odd. To start the battle, we land a Mega Horn on Mightyena and kill, leading to Weezing. So we switch out the Citadel, who we haven't used since the first gym, and take out Maxie's 2nd Pokemon. Crobat is out and I switch in to Crate and land a Rock Slide to take it out. Maxie is obviously jealous and sends out his own camera up, which becomes the first of 3 Megas we will see on our run, and probably the easiest to deal with due to it being 4 times weak to water. So we send out Crayon, the Crawdon, only to get yawned, and I get scared and switch to Seaking, who one-shots the Pimple with Waterfall. So that's it, no more Team Magma. But we do have a Feral Lava Dino on the loose, so we make our way to Sootopolis and enter the Cave of Origin, where we hitch a ride and challenge Primal Groudon. In my pea-sized brain, I think I can catch this lethal monster in some casual Ultra Balls without getting a scratch. I was wrong. So I run from the battle back to the Magma Lair and get the Master Ball, back to Groudon, catch it, and act like nothing ever happened. The worst part about this was the fact that I was going to use Wishcash on my Elite Four team as a counter to the champion. So I'm heavily demoralized, almost to the point of quitting at the time. I didn't see a way to win, but we press on. After defeating Satan, a few side quests open up. First, we help out Watson in order to get the TM for Thunderbolt, and we go to the wreck of the Titanic and get Ice Beam and Mad Cash. After taking care of these errands, we challenge Wallace, the final gym leader. He starts with a Love Disc as I sent out Electrode, who easily one-shots with T-Bolt. Wishcash comes out and I switch into Tropius in hopes that he goes for a Ground-type move, but instead he goes for a Mud Sport, which weakens the power of Electric-type moves, but we take it out next turn. Milotic comes out and I know he sees Ice Beam, so I go into Jellicent to tank. That which he does, and no matter how many times Milotic used Recover, Shadow Ball eventually kills with the help of a few special defense drops. Celio comes out, which dies to another Shadow Ball, and Seaking is his last Pokemon, and unfortunately we are all out of Shadow Balls, so we send in Lantern to finish the job, and we get our final gym badge. On our way to Evergrande City to make preparations for the Elite Four, the ghost of Tentacruel takes the life of Tropius as retribution for its own death. But let's be real, I wasn't going to be using Tropius anymore anyways. After some preparations, I make my way into Victory Road and catch the last of our encounters, Medicham. I make my way through Victory Road with relative ease until I find myself face to face with Mr. Be Careful Who You Make Fun of in High School, who just so happens to be doing his very own Midlocke, but he broke the rules, so it's my job to punish him for his sins. Wally's team is so free. The 4 of his 5 Pokemon are just cakewalk. Unfortunately, that last Pokemon is a Mega Gallade. I try and bait him into using a fighting type move so I can get a free switch in on Jellicent, but for some reason he goes for Psycho Cut, and now I am fully prepared for Mr. Monopoly to die. and maybe even lose the run outright considering he used Swords Dance the turn before. But in the greatest stroke of luck of all time, we land the crit, Shadow Ball, and one-shot Gallade, winning us the last battle before the Elite Four. Before taking on the lead, I need to do a few things, such as get the last member of the party, Spiritomb, after a few crashes, and name it appropriately, and move on. I also get some powerful TMs like Flamethrower, Psychic, and Toxic, go to the move deleter, and finally remove some really bad HMs. Hack in some hard skills because grinding Thief on Love Disc takes too long and I'm not about that, and make some good move sets on my team. Before we take on the Elite Four, let me go over my team one last time. Starting off, Power the Lantern, Crate the Camerupt, King the Metachan, Crayon the Crawdaunt, K-Pop the Wigglytuff, and the newly acquired Crash the Spiritomb. I constructed this team to fully exploit every member of the Elite Four, yet I was still so nervous. Maybe it was the fact that I had no member that felt like the core. Each member of the party had a part to play, and if one of them went down, the entire run is essentially over. I need to remain deathless until Steven to even have a shot at winning. So I spend my time studying the team's Elite Four. Items such as typing plates and berries, the different TMs in which my Pokemon can learn it, and how the AI will react depending on the Pokemon I have out. With one last look at the Pokemon that have gotten me this far, I proceed to meet my fate in the halls of the Pokemon League. My friend Jack, the one who chose every encounter for this run, joins me in the last chapter in this story. First up is Sydney, the Dark Master. I lead Power against Mightyena and take a Sucker Punch before I go for an Insect Plate boosted Signal Beam. However, the Coyote survives on a Sliver. Then I predict a heal, so I go for a Volt Switch and get a good chunk before going into Metachan, who kills with Brick Break. Next comes out the scariest Mon on the team, Absol. With a base 130 attack, I cannot afford to underestimate this emo dog, so I bring in Crash and Burn in order to slash that massive attack stat, but not before Absol gets off a powerful Night Slash crit. Next, I send in Crayon to clean up shop by using X-Scissor to eliminate the disaster Pokemon. Sydney brings out the Grass-type Shiftry to counter my Water-type. After some time debating whether it was going for Fake Out or Leaf Blade, I went to King, who took hefty damage from Leaf Blade. Fortunately, I outsped and Fistplate powered Brick Break killed the old man. Sharpedo is next in line and outspeeds all of my pretty slow team, so I go into Crayon and take Resisted Crunch. We avoid the crit and Scissor the Shark, but not before almost having a heart attack with Rough Skin. The final Mon is a cameo from my other friend, Cactus, so I go into the meaty K-Pop and Ice Beam. Leaves me up for a 2-hit kill, but due to some Needle Arm flinch shenanigans, Cactus delays the inevitability of his death by mere seconds. Next is by far the easiest member, Phoebe, the Ghost-type user. The first matchup is between Dusclops and Crayon, which gets a surprise one-shot crunch on Dusclops. This gives me hope for Crayon to sweep, but unfortunately the elemental punch-wielding Reaper causing me to switch into K-Pop, who just feeds on electricity and is able to take out the Envoy from Sinnoh in 2 Shadow Balls. The first Bayonet comes out and I have to switch to Crayon once more, who gets poisoned but kills with a single crunch. When Sableye comes out, I realize that Grudge took all the PP from my crunch, meaning I can't sweep the remainder of her team. I correctly predict a Fake Out and switch into K-Pop, who easily kills the Gem Muncher with Play Rough. The last Bayonet comes out and its attempt to burn K-Pop is in vain as she one-shots the Sock Puppet with Shadow Ball. Now that we're halfway down to Elite Four, I would like to say how much I have enjoyed using this group of Pokemon, especially K-Pop and Crayon. I feel that if I ever encounter these mons in the future run, I will for sure use them in their fullest capability. But for now, it's time to fight Elsa. We match our Metachan against her living incarnation of a Brain Freeze and are able to crack this snow globe with one hit. One of Glacia's 2 Frostlasses come out next, and with Jack's help, we deduce that this Frostlass is the one of Draining Kiss and Shadow Ball. So with that information, I switch into K-Pop, who can't take any damage from the Shadow Ball. However, the next turn, she sets up Hail and does not die from my attack. This activates Snow Cloak, raising her evasiveness and making blizzards never miss. Overall, not the best of situations, but luck is on my side and we take a blizzard and kill with a second Shadow Ball. The second Frostlass comes out and we know it has no answer for Crayon, so we send her out. Crayon gets confused, which worries me, but again, Lady Luck is with me, and not only do I hit through confusion, I am able to make contact with Crunch, and we knock out the last Sinnohmon we'll be seeing from our opponents. However, we cannot celebrate just yet as the real threat, Walrein, comes out, with Hail still in effect. However, we are put in an advantageous position as Crayon resists all of Walrein's moves except Body Slam, meaning we get a free switch in on Crash. But that's not what happens. Blizzard hits, and we take a lot of damage, but fortunately Hail ended so Blizzard can now miss. With that, we poison the Walrus and protect, doing some chip damage. Then we switch into the bulkier Power and kill with a Thunderbolt. Last out is Glalie, but we basically already won the battle, so we send out Medicham and kill with one more Brick Break. 3 down and only 2 battles left. 11 Pokemon on our way, 2 pseudo legendaries and 1 Mega. But for now, Drake is our next fight. We eat up a Moonblast from Altaria. We retaliate with an Ice Beam from K-Pop, easily taking out the Q-Tip Swan. Next up is one of my favorite Pokemon and the former mascot of this channel, Flygon. Drake has 2 of these, one special and one physical. I'm thinking this is the physical one due to the higher damage output on Earthquake. So I go into the physically bulky Crayon to take the hit. Except this is the special one and I get hit by a nasty Boom Burst that takes over half of my health and effectively removes Crayon from this fight. We then expect a second Boom Burst and go into Crash to go for some burn chip damage and knock out the first of the 2 Dragonflies with a Dark Pulse. The second Flygon is out and we know this is the physical one, but that does not make this any less of a threat. I know it wants to go for Earthquake, but I have nothing that resists, so I have to go into K-Pop. Lady Luck must know me personally because Drake decides to go for a Supersonic and we take an Earthquake and are able to hit with an Ice Beam, leaving 2 Pokemon left. Kingdra is 4th up, and K-Pop is the only member of my team that can hit it for super effective damage. But instead, I switch into Power to take some resisted damage. But he goes for a Yawn instead. We take 1 turn of damage, and we go for a T-Bolt before falling asleep. Then, we are forced to switch into K-Pop, and Kingdra goes for a no damage Dragon Pulse. We are then able to kill it with a Play Rough. Finally, the Pokemon equivalent to an F16, Salamence. We get a special attack boost due to our competitive ability, ensuring we KO with an Ice Beam. We just need to live 1 hit. And we live the Zen Headbutt, avoid the flinch, and take down the Salad Menace, and with that, the Elite Four as well. Which means all that stands in our way of victory of this Nuzlocke is one Steven Stone. After 20 minutes of planning, I feel like I have the best plan for Steven I could have had with this team. So, the final battle begins, and win or lose, the Nuzlocke ends here. I lead Crate in on Skarmory, and I know that Steven goes for Spikes, so I go for a Flamethrower, but don't knock it out due to Sturdy. Next turn, I set up a Curse because I know he will heal, and after another turn of Spikes, I go for another Flamethrower, Sturdy activates again. The Beta Corviknight attempts to poison Crate, but I heal with a Lumberry and then take it out. The second scariest Pokemon comes out in Aggron, with a massive attack stat and defensive stat. I realize I can probably survive an Earthquake with the help of Curse. And we live an Earthquake with a little over half health, and the Aggron gets into Sturdy with an Earthquake of our own. I risk the damage roll and I'm able to get a second Earthquake to kill. Claydol is 3rd, and I send in K-Pop as I no longer have a use for her. We take 1 Earth Power and Entry, but the biblically accurate Owl goes for a Light Screen, making Shadow Ball do rookie numbers. We take 1 more Earth Power and knock the Clay Bastard down to half health. We are forced to send in King, who takes an Earth Power and knocks out the telepathic Dreidel with an Ice Punch. Cradily gives me a nice break as it goes down to a single Brick Break, but then Steven's penultimate Pokemon comes out, Armaldo. Wanting a clean switch, I order Medicham to do 1 last Brick Break before going down to an X-Scissor. Power is then able to take it out with a Surf, leading to the Pokemon equivalent to an ICBM, Mega Metagross. coming out. The plan to take down this behemoth is to bait in a Giga Impact and use Crash to burn, having the monstrous attack stat, and finishing off with a combined effort of Crash and Crayon's dark moves. But I forget to look at the choking hazard and switch into Crash, who takes a bit too much damage from a bullet punch than I like. If I lose Crash before he burns, the run is over. I need to get a clean switch in to put momentum back into my favor, so I sack Crate, who goes down thanks to spikes, and I send in Crayon in hopes that I can bait out a Giga Impact. However, I don't know how recharge moves work, and in my mind, even if the move is used against a Pokemon who takes no damage from it, the Pokemon will still need to recharge, which, in my defense, makes a lot of sense. So I switch into Crash and avoid taking any damage from said move. However, to my dismay, the supercomputer is able to move next turn and takes out Crash before it burns, and just like that, the run is dead. One by one, the remaining members of my team fall to this behemoth, and I lose. To get so close to winning this challenge, only to throw it all away in the very last Pokemon, it does hurt a little, not gonna lie. But the original idea for this challenge was to use otherwise underappreciated Pokemon while making the original games harder. And to that extent, I believe it was a success. This is not the last hardcore Nuzlocke I will do, and it is definitely not the last Midlocke either. Maybe not this game, but we will get our redemption. One day. Before I go, I want to give a special shout out to my boy Jack, who helped me set up this challenge, as well as helping me in the Elite Four, with his angelic voice providing me guidance, like a benefactor gifted by the gods. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.